everyone. Today I have with me author and radio host Carole P. Roman. Thank you so much for talking to me today, Carole.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
I know. Thank you for sending me these books. I have them all sitting in front of me, and I have grandchildren that I cannot wait to read these books to.
I'm glad to hear that because I love to hear they're reaching the kids.
Absolutely. I love, Carole has these books, and they're called If You Were Me and Lived, and they cover Italy and Mars and Scotland. Let's see, what else do I have here? Ancient Greece, Viking Europe, Elizabethan, how do you say that? England. Elizabethan, yeah. Okay, England. And when I read these books, because I'm a history fanatic, I learned stuff. So, I was like, oh my gosh. And the way you put it, I was like, I thought I knew that, and I didn't know. There was lots of stuff in here that is interesting, not just for the children, but for the adults who are reading it to their children.
Then I succeeded because that was the goal. When I wrote these books, when I did, I started with Captain No Beard, which was a labor of love. It was a contest between my sons and I. We came in the next morning and we all had to bring something, and I wrote the first book, and it went out to win. We loaded on to CreateSpace, and they helped me pick an illustrator, and the book started winning awards. That I turned it into a series. I realized then, if I was going to do this self-authoring thing, that you really have to establish yourself with a brand. So what had happened was I was a history teacher about 100 years ago.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, I was a social studies teacher until I gave birth to Michael. And so I was with my grandson, Michael's son, and we were in Vegas, and we were walking around, and he saw the Eiffel Tower, and he said to me, "What is that?" And I tried explaining an icon to a 4-year-old. And I said, you know what? I went and I looked for a book, and there was nothing that explained what the Eiffel Tower was, what being associated with a country was. And so I set out to do a series that little children could read. It was aimed to preschool, and it ended up being accepted by grade school. And what it is, I kept it very simple. I went with KISS, keep it simple, you know what. And it was 10 issues, 10 things that would interest a child, and I didn't want to talk down to them. So I said, I remember going, do you remember they had an exhibit where you went and you saw the Titanic and you were given a name at the beginning of the ride? It was in Vegas. It's been all over, and at the end of the ride you find out whether you survived or not. So I went with that notion that you identified with a person, so I start the book by showing where the country is, what the capital would be, because that's what a child would hear in the news. You hear about the capital. That's where news comes out of usually. And then I wanted it to, I gave 3 boys' names and 3 girls' names. And then what you would call your mother, what you would call your father. And just things that I felt would interest a child. What the bonus was, it ended up that the parents loved the book because it opens doorways to discussions that, you can have a word like doll in Greece, and it's kukla. And then if you pick up the Russian book, guess what the word for doll is? Kukla. Or how many people say mama for mommy? Or I mean, that's a fascinating bit of information. Then we cover where you would bring a guest. So there's the icon. Where would you bring a guest if they came to visit you in Paris? Well, you'd bring them to the Eiffel Tower, and it was built by Gustav Eiffel. And, so each book has different, and of course food. Who doesn't love food?
Right.
So we talk about what a typical meal would be in your house and whether mom would make it or grandma or, what the cultural foods are. When I was a teacher, one of my favorite lessons was I would ask children to bring in their Thanksgiving menu. And they would bring it in, and one child said they had turkey, but they had kimchi. So we knew that his ancestors came from Korea. And another child had turkey, but they had a side of lasagna. So we guessed that his ancestors were from Italy. So everybody brings something of their food to their relationship. So the books took off, and everybody kept saying, do an older one. So I'm a history fanatic too, Michelle. I did If You Were Me, and I picked time periods that I was interested interested in. There was no rhyme or reason. It was just stuff that I liked. And I did the Vikings, and I wanted to show them as having a rich culture, not just the image that people have of Vikings and the Middle Ages. And again, it's what it's like for a boy and what it's like for a girl. And people are really embracing the books.
The thing is like, yeah, and look at Netflix and Amazon right now. Like, what are their top shows? History shows, the Vikings, Queen, Victoria, like all the, everybody, since, the media is just really embracing culture and history. And, I watch these shows with my kids and they're like, is this true? Is this true? I'm like, yes, it's true. Like, it's better,
What I've learned in reading history is that every age gives birth to the new age. For instance, you had ancient Greece and the learnings of ancient Greece, and as that time toppled and they went into the dark ages when the roads broke down and there was no trade and there was no army to protect people from exchanging ideas, and then we go into and then I expand that it wasn't necessarily dark age, but maybe it was a different age where learning wasn't as exchanged, the trade wasn't exchanged, and then you go into the Renaissance where all of a sudden there's this rebirth of those ancient ideas. So each book kind of leads to another book. The Elizabethan England talks about exploration, and then you have colonial America. So each one of these books is almost like a chain, and that if people realize, the biggest issue is why should we learn history? My own kids hated history. Why?
Me too. Yep.
And you know what? If you don't know history, you don't know why we're doing what we're doing. You can't appreciate our country and the freedoms we have if you don't know how hard people had to fight for these things. If you don't know about women's suffrage and the fact that in each one of my books, 90% of them, women were not given education, maybe you'll appreciate the spot we're in. I have 2 granddaughters now, and I say to them, where we are today is not where our grandmothers, well, certainly, I don't know how old you are, but certainly not my grandmother or my great-grandmother. Right. And these books show how far we've come and how hard people had to fight to get here. And so history is really important. The books, like I said, they're an open kind of lesson that people can pull out what they want, concentrate on what they want to do, open discussions, or ignore things that they're not comfortable with. And I had to be delicate about certain things because some history is bloody, and I didn't want it to be like that. I didn't want it to be where the kids would latch on to, for instance, when I did Mayan culture, what the big thing is with Mayan, I didn't want it to be about sacrifice, but about the rich culture that these people brought so much that we have to thank them today for something as simple as zero, in our culture. It's just fascinating.
Yes, and I have 6 children, and I homeschooled my children. And what I was thinking when I got these, I only have one child left. He's 14. And I was like, oh, my gosh, for all you because I have a lot of homeschooling people that listen, they watch these videos because I really promote history and science through books because that's what I did with my children. And these books are perfect for whatever you're studying in history. How to make it – because you took – what I noticed, and, because I've read a lot of them having homeschooled, I read a lot of history books, and what I appreciated about them is that I knew the amount of research you had to do to make it simple. Okay, so it was like
you're right.
You in order to make it that simplified, I know the research that had to go behind it because you taught, like I said, I've read hundreds of history books for children, and I still was learning stuff. So I was like, wow, she did a lot of research for this and to make it this simple. And, so I applaud you. I love them, and I love them as an adult, and I can't wait to read them to my grandchildren. And
thank you.
And teach them history. But
it was each line in those books. Each
right.
one of those lines had to count without cluttering with a lot of information that was the children's eyes would glaze over, and that was the biggest thing. That when I was a history teacher, I was in demand. Kids liked my class. I will tell you that. So what I do with, that's what I think the problem is in a lot of schools today, is we don't personalize. Kids are learning things. Why am I learning this? They don't understand the value of it, of where they're going to need it. So for me, writing these books was like taking a subject that I know everybody says they hate history, they don't appreciate it, and I wanted them to say, and that's the letters, that's been the response. You made it interesting. My child identified. My son was calling him Mamer. We looked up Greek words and we spoke in Greek for the rest of the day. They, even something as simple as, I remember when I was doing Norway, which was like the fourth book, and it said I had traveled to Europe and I collected money. I used to use money when I did my lessons, and I would hand out coins to the students, and I would say, okay, look at this coin. Tell me what you can about this country. Oh, I can't tell you anything. Well, is the coin heavy or light? Well, it's light. Well, maybe it's not a really, prosperous country. Is there a picture of industry or is there a picture of agriculture on the coin? Oh, there's wheat. So it tells us it's an agricultural country. And so you look at coins. Does it have a monarch? Does it have a president? There's a lot of information that we can pick up from just a simple thing like a coin. So when I was researching Norway, the coins have a hole in the center. And I was fascinated just with that. I had to find out why. So because they used to loop it on their belt. They used to run a cord through the coins, and that's how they carried their money. They looped it through, and they held it on their belt. And I just thought that was fascinating.
Yes.
It's something that people accept. Well, the coin, I don't know if they have it right now. I haven't researched recently, but just a simple thing like that, the cronin, had a hole in the center so it could be looped on a belt when people traveled in the olden days. And I just think that it's great, and I love the book. I think they're fun books.
Oh my! I just hope you continue. I really do. I hope you. I hope you keep writing them because I think they're amazing.
Thank you. They are bestsellers. I sell a lot of them, and I have to thank, and I personally want to thank the homeschoolers because they are the most open-minded people, and they're my biggest. On blogs all over the internet, those homeschoolers, they really promote the books, and I am so grateful to them. They've really been marvelous. More so, I can't get a school to look at them, but the homeschoolers are open-minded, and they'll look at the books and use them and reuse them with each generation. I mean, they're out 5 years, and I'm still getting letters from people that have the book saying, my first child loved it, and now my baby loves it. And I've branched into other things. I just started with I don't know if I sent you the early reader chapter book.
Yes.
Did you like those, Susannah?
I love, yeah, I was, like I said, I was thinking I have a grandchild that's starting preschool, and I was like, oh my gosh, these are so, whether or not her mom appreciates me schooling her or not, we'll see. But when I have her, when I'm babysitting, we're going to be reading, these books. I can't wait. And, that, like you said about what I caught on what you said about the every line, that I think is the most important thing for children. You can't waste lines because their attention span is so short. So that's what I appreciated with your books was I realized that every one of those lines, the research behind every line you wrote, I could see because I've read enough of them. And that's how I knew they were this good. And I did see that they won awards. And, like I said, I hope you keep doing it because I really think that we need those for children. I really do.
Thank you so much. I've written a nursery series. I don't know if I sent you Rocket By and Can a Princess Be a Firefighter? And those are what.
Yeah, I got the one, yes, which I'm going to give to my granddaughters, the Can a Princess Be a Firefighter, because it's so cute. And the illustrations are so cute.
Oh, I love working with Mateja. She's in Bulgaria, and we met over the internet, and I wrote that book. What happened was I wrote Rocket By. We're big stargazers. So I wrote Rocket By for my grandson. And I said, well, I have to do something for my granddaughters. So I wrote Can a Princess Be a Firefighter in the same night. I wrote both books that night, read it to them, over FaceTime. And, of course, it had a wonderful effect. And Princess, I love that book because, I don't want any limits on my girls. They have to know they can do anything they want to do, and nobody should make them feel less than what they can achieve. So that book is really hitting some, it's hitting its mark. I have 1 to 10. I don't know if I sent you that one, but that's about coping. And, of course, all of the Captain No Beards have lessons in them from peer pressure.
I love the Captain No Beard. Yes, I love that. Yeah.
They have a special place in my heart. And then I started Susannah. And then, of course, I've branched out into helping other indie authors right now. That's become quite, not on purpose, but there were so many people saying, how did you publish 50-some-odd books? How did you get into Forbes Magazine? How did you, not once but twice, but how did you get this stuff? And it's all about promotion. So I said, it's easy. All you have to do is, I told so many people what they had to do that I ended up writing a book with my social marketing, the person who did my social marketing. And we're now working on marketing Indieworld with a college professor. They asked us to write the book with them. So I think it's going to be used in a course for writing.
And, it's amazing that, so I have your Navigating Indieworld book here. For everybody out there, if you are an indie writer, you need this book, okay? Because she takes you through it. It couldn't have been more laid out and easier to understand than how you did it, okay? As I'm reading this, I'm like, wow, I didn't even know some of this stuff, and you lay it out. You show them how to do it. And now I know that there are college classes because of the internet and because the whole world is getting different with indie writers and being able to market your own stuff. The marketing and the indie world is getting to be classes. You can go to a community college and take a class on it. It's crazy, right? Because nobody knows, where to start, basically. And Navigating Indieworld, it's like, here's how you start. This is what you do to start. And then at the end, it's like, this is how you do it. At the end, I don't know. I think this book says it all.
Thank you. We shared all of our contacts. There's no secrets.
No secrets. No secrets. That
right.
is the key. That is the key, because I was thinking you're giving it to everybody. Exactly what you did.
That's exactly what, a lot of people don't want to share their information. Right. The kind of greediness that if they know something works. And we're not, my girlfriends and I, we're not like that. In fact, we were on threads on Goodreads, Goodreads. And there were so many authors, they didn't want to share their information. And there were so many people who were crying out saying, help me, help me, help me, that Julie ended up starting a Navigating Indieworld thread on Goodreads. And we're up to 500 members on that. And then R.L. Jackson, who I'm going to tell you what happened with her, she was somebody I met on the thread. She said, let's do a magazine. And we started this magazine called Indie Authors Monthly. And she landed us a thread that has over 5,000 members, 5,000 writers, authors on it, where, it's pretty much, there's no secret. We want to share everything we know. We want to share our mistakes and our triumphs. And we want to make it easy for every indie out there. There's 3 million books published yearly. And if you don't know how to do it, your book's going to go and fall into the pit at Amazon. You're going to spend all that time and effort to write your book, and then you don't promote it. And there are so many inexpensive and reasonable ways to promote. Most of them, like in the book, are mostly elbow grease. If you're willing to put in the effort to write the book, then you know what? Put in the effort to promote it. Share the book. It may change someone's life. And you're right. We just laid it all out in Navigating Indieworld. We're available through the threads. We talk to people. And the threads have grown into, like I said, a magazine and a radio show. So
crazy.
Who would have thought? You're right. Who would have thought this would have happened?
Yeah. Yeah. I have a son who's 30. And he's always like, he did it this morning to me. This is our conversation. Mom, I thought of this idea for a book. How about I do it he's like always, I'm like, Kyle, he never sticks to one thing because he gets stuck, okay? He gets stuck halfway through the book, or he gets to, and I was like, you have to read this book first, okay? And then, find your thing that you're so passionate about. Because I can tell in these history books, I see your passion. Okay, it comes right through. And instead of trying to figure out what other people want in a book, try to figure out what you want to write about, basically.
You are so right, Michelle. That's one of the big secrets. People are writing what they think is going to market. And if you're planning to do this so you can be rich, if you think you're going to do the next whatever runaway bestseller, Twilight 50s, that lightning doesn't work like that. You're lucky if you can make a living doing it, and it can be done. You need enough product, but if you don't put your name out there, people will find you. Like-minded people will find you. And not only that, we're in such an age that if people find your book and it reaches them, they have friends on the internet, in chat groups, on Facebook, and they will promote your book for you. It will grow organically. But if you've got to finish it. And don't write for other people. Write to yourself.
Yes.
Write exactly what you said. When I wrote the history books, each one of my books, I wrote them for me. They're my legacy to my children.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I finished the book, I said to myself, my kids will visit me in 100 years. They'll be able to look at this book and see a snapshot of what I was thinking. And I was always thinking about my kids. That's my life. And
right.
You leave something behind. The fact that other people identified with it, and I'm reaching people that are now become my friends. I've got, 6,000 or 8,000 followers on Facebook. I'm staggered by it,
Mm-hmm.
And now, like I said, with the radio shows, we have Navigating Indieworld, but they gave me a radio show for my history books, for my culture books. It's called Let's Say Hello to Our Neighbors. They've even written a theme song for me. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yes. And, but it wouldn't have happened if you wouldn't have found what you wanted, your passion. It wouldn't have happened. Right. And that's, and that I think is the biggest thing. I read a lot of books. And, I can tell when somebody's passion is in it, or if they're trying to be, I want to be part of the sci-fi community. Let's see if I can do that. Right away from the beginning, I'm like, I don't feel it. I'm not feeling it. But as soon as I read a book that I feel the person through, I'm like, yes, that is going to, that's a good book,
I forgot to mention Michael, Michael, my son.
Yes, I do. I love Michael.
Thank you. Me too. So he was invited to this new medium called Radish. And, of course, Michael got a publishing deal, so he can't publish anywhere but through the publisher right now. And his book is coming out. I'm very excited in October. But he wrote them and he said, well, my mom writes children's books. She's been toying with the idea of writing an adult book. Why don't you write her? So they wrote me and they said, we looked you up, and you're pretty prolific. 50-some-odd books in 4 years is pretty prolific. Would you be interested in tackling some adult stuff? I said, you know what? Yeah, but I want to do a different name. I'm gonna write under the name Britt London, BRITLUNDEN, Britt London, because I don't want it associated with my children's books. So I wrote a book. It's 17 chapters, and they published it. And it's called Bulwark, and it's on Radish, which you can download. It's an app. But not only that, I wrote to that some of my friends who were so stuck and not making sales. I got at least 11 people onto Radish. 11 authors.
I never even heard of it. I got to check it out.
You got to check it. And how they work is the first 3 chapters are free. So you can read any of these authors for free, and if you like the book, you purchase these coins. It's kind of similar to Candy Crush. I don't play Candy Crush, but it's similar to Candy Crush. I think they're 12 cents a coin. And each additional chapter after that, the first 3, is 12 cents a coin or something, or maybe it's 12 cents.
Wow, what a concept.
Right. So you can put your book on completely for free. In fact, if your book is on Amazon, then you can put it on there for free, and you'll get a whole new audience. Or you can put your book on, the first 3 chapters are free, and then after that, people buy the chapters. I have already 20 followers. And it's kind of a riff on Hansel and Gretel. It's a paranormal kind of horror story. And I wrote it really quick, and I had a lot of fun with it. And it's very user-friendly to download because I'm not confident. I need help with that stuff, but I was able to take care of it fairly easily. And you release the chapters, and people, when you look up this site, Radish Fiction, they have a YouTube video, And in the video, there's a young girl, and she's playing tennis, and all of a sudden her phone pings, and she stops, and she runs. She says, I don't want to play anymore, and she runs away. And then you see her in like a little corner, and she's reading something. And then she's at work, and it pings, and she runs it from her desk. So what happens is, as writers download books, they can schedule release and kind of tease their audience, so they're really kind of captured and waiting for each chapter to be published. So you can have a little fun with it. I
know. I'm already thinking of that has possibilities. That's amazing. You know.
But what I did with it was I wrote two different endings to my book. So when you read my Bulwark, which is about the sheriff whose marriage is kind of crumbling, and he's lost a child unfortunately, and his wife had a breakdown, but he loves her, and they've separated, and they're getting divorced. I have two endings. Because of this medium, I was able to give the reader a choice. So I said, if you want the happy ending, it's 16. If you like an ending that's not so kind of like a little creepier ending, go to chapter 17. And I haven't gotten feedback yet because it's only up a week, but I had fun. Where else do you have this freedom to do stuff like that?
That is an amazing opportunity for writers. That is crazy. I can, like I said, I've already like, oh my gosh, I got to check that out. Definitely, I'm going to send it to my son. He should check that out. That might motivate. I think it's motivating more than anything too.
I think that if you want to write, there's a million places where you can publish. But the only thing is you have to be realistic in your goals. You may not get the cover of Newsweek, or I don't even know if Newsweek's around anymore. I'm dating myself, but you may not get on the cover of People. You may not get your own radio show or your Skype show. You may not, but you might. It may happen to you if you promote yourself and you learn the ropes on how to really push yourself out there and get on those Goodreads threads and make yourself a personality and answer every blog. Go on. I never say no. I'm just the girl who can't say no. Anyone who asks me to write an article, anyone who asks me to be on their show, I'll go anywhere. I'll stay up till 2 a.m. I'll do it because one more person may hear about my book and it'll reach another audience. But I will say that I'm realistic about my goals. I didn't put my dates.
Right. You know what? I just wrote one thing that's popular right now, and I just thought of this, is that I wrote a short story for one of the authors that I had interviewed, and what she does is she just compiles people's short stories and then separates them into books. That's another way for writers to get started. I just did a short story about my mom. She did a cancer book, and I wrote about it, and it's like, I was thinking today, it just came out, and I was like, I'm on Amazon. Like, it's in a compilation of a book. But there are just so many ways like that, that writers can get started,
That's right. Those books do very well. When I wrote Bulwark, it was supposed to be in an anthology. A couple of writers came to me and said, we want to do, and so we came up with the story about a town where everything's sort of going wrong. And everybody divided up that it could be zombies, could be we all divided up monsters. And what happened when I finish it right. Nothing stays long on my desk. I finish it. So I had my finished story within 3 weeks. And what happened was everybody else was distracted with life. I'm not blaming them. I mean, life happens. And this one couldn't finish in time. This one, had a family drama. Whatever was going on, nobody finished it. And then the radish came up. So I said, well, I could sit and wait till next year because we wanted to release it for Halloween, or I could use it for radish. So I wrote them and I said, does anybody, I gave them the choice. I said, do you have an objection? I could get you all in radish also. I could suggest your books to radish and see if they accept you. And everybody was fine with it, and within a week I was published on radish. But yes, those anthologies actually do. A lot of people make good money with. They do very well with them.
So what would you give as when you say you finish it? I mean, you have a day job. You publish all of the you've got all your writing all the time. Like what do you do? What do you not do? Like what do you think people get distracted from? Like just
the big
that you don't.
Right. The biggest time sucker is not being realistic with your time. I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning. You know, we have a breakfast meeting at work every day. You know, I work in a family business, and you know, we're with our eggs and coffee. We're sitting and we get our business. I work with. I have an office of about 15 people. You know, it's a pretty big business. It's global. You know, and I do my work. You know, and I have really great people who work with me, so I don't have to do their work. That's the key. But the biggest thing I think is people get distracted by things like TV or sitting on the phone with a friend or feeling sorry for themselves. You know, I have stuff in my life too. It's not all rosy, but you can't sit and dwell on those things. You have to kind of put things in compartments and get busy. You know, I'm busy from 6 in the morning till 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. You know, I read with my grandson every night. We read books together on FaceTime. I speak with each one of my grandchildren. So I make time for everything, but I have no wasteful time. I don't, you know, I don't have to shop. I can do everything from the internet. I mean, that doesn't mean I don't go shopping with my daughter-in-law. That's value. There's such a thing as valuable time or constructive time and time wasters. And I try, you know, certainly I have to nurture relationships. So when my daughter-in-laws want me to go for lunch or go shopping with them, I make the time to do those things. But I don't do things that are not productive. I try, you know, I've seen people get sidetracked by running out with their friends every night, sitting in coffee shops, you know. And while you do need to socialize to a degree, you have to kind of like being on a diet. You can't eat it all. You know what I mean? You have to be disciplined. And we have, you know, a family business, so I was disciplined from the time we started our business. We started this business. I borrowed $1,600 from my kid brother, and it became one of the largest in the industry. And it became so large because of the discipline. I used all of my time. I used to sit with yellow pages and cold call people to get them to, you know, to use us or, you know, to use my company. So I've been disciplined from an early age. You know, dinner was still on the table for my kids. I still did the laundry. I was able to be realistic about what I can do and what I can't do. And I think that's the biggest thing. People take on silly things that maybe are just not really smart.
And you know, you've passed that down to Michael, because when I got his books, I was like, where does he find the time? You know, I was like, oh my goodness, between the two of you, the amount of books you have, like, it's crazy. Right. So when people say, oh, I write a book a year, you're like, why are you only writing a book? You know, that is not, I don't know, not in this day and age anyway. You can write way more than that.
I'm fine with a person writing one book a year, and I think that that's fine. And if that's their goal, that's fine. But then don't waste time with it. In other words, I feel like I could write a book in 3 weeks, you know, and it could be, you know, we'll see if Bulwark is successful or not. I can't say, but I know my other books are pretty successful. The point is, you have to attach yourself and learn from people who are succeeding. And the biggest, like I said, the biggest thing I think that goes against people is when they sit and they carry on about how they feel sorry for themselves, and they get distracted with that instead of just sitting and attacking what they have to do. And,
right.
You know, sometimes you just got to rip a bandage. You know, you remember taking off bandages from your kids' knees?
Yep.
You could do it slow, and they're going to sit there and they're going to cry, or you do it really fast, and it's over. And it's the kind of thing people have to get, you know, if you get up in the morning and you're sitting and you're looking at the birds and you're on the phone, you're distracted. These are distractions. You walk for the mail. There's a million things. There's a million distractions all day. I think that you have to, like, kind of put blinders on and say, today, I live by lists. My kids, they've been brought up with a list. You know, we start every day with a list. My staff starts every day with a list. We look at the list, and it's a very great feeling when you can cross things off because you've moved them off your desk and gotten them accomplished. Nothing works like success, I think. Don't you agree, Michelle?
I agree. And, you are so inspiring, Carole. And I'm so glad that, Michael introduced us because,
Thank you.
You've given me so many ideas. And I know everybody listening, I mean, I can hear it in your voice. And it isn't fake. It's like we could sit on Facebook for a half an hour at a shot. And not even blink. I mean, you can literally sit down at Facebook. You can look up. It's a half an hour later, okay? Or Twitter or whatever it is, whatever you're on. And, right there, that's a half an hour. And what have you done besides read nothing? Like,
right. Well, those are the distractions that when you don't want to work, that, like when I was a newlywed, I got pregnant, pretty early in our marriage. And I had a client, and she came on. I was pretty upset one day because we only had one car. We were very poor when we started. My husband and I were very poor. And he took the car, and I couldn't get groceries. And she came over. She felt sorry. She heard the panic in my voice, and she came over, and she took me shopping. And she said, "Do you know the mistake you made?" And I said, "No." She said, "You didn't get it done." She said, "You're having a child now." She had 2 children. And she said, "You have to learn, when you have a child, don't put anything off. If you have to do something, you take care of it immediately. You don't put things off." And I think that's the biggest thing that writers do, that puts things off. And
that's awesome.
It was like one of those life. I just thought of it, but she trained me. I was 22 years old, and I remember. I can tell you what I was wearing when we had to. I was sitting on my bed crying and feeling sorry for myself. I was 6 months pregnant. And she was sitting and rubbing my back, and she said, "The biggest mistake you made was putting things off." She said, "You have a child, because you don't know if that kid is going to get strep throat by evening, or you don't know if you're going to have kids vomiting all over the kitchen. So never put off. If you have to get something done, take care of it right away and make sure you get it done." And you know what? I think any success I have today is because of that woman, Barbara. And I owe her a lot because it was, Michael always says to me, "You can change in an instant." He always snaps his fingers when I feel that I'm in a rut. My kids are Michael and Eric, and they're very inspiring. And they'll say things like, they'll come and they'll shake me and they say, "Reinvent yourself. If it's not working, reinvent yourself. Don't sit on it." And you know what? You can learn from your children. You can learn from your parents. You can learn from everybody, but you got to open your ears and listen to what people are telling you.
Oh, well, I could talk to you forever, Carole. Seriously,
Thanks.
You are so inspiring, and I know I'm going to know you, so I know we'll be talking more, but thank you so much for talking about these books, and anybody who is out there, homeschooling moms and just moms with little kids, it doesn't matter. These books are entertaining. I love your children's series, and I will promote them, and and then, of course, Navigating Indieworld, I mean, please. If you are writing a book and you want to self-publish, please read this book, because it's the only one you're going to have to read, and it's not long, and so it won't take you much time since we're, trying to figure out how to save time. It won't take you that much time, and it answers every question that you could possibly have. And I can't wait to read Marketing World, because that is the next question that always comes up, and then you can answer all those questions for everybody having a hard time marketing. So I can't wait.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Yes. And you know what? I had a ball. This was fun.
Oh, I'm glad. I had a great time. I'm going to go get to work now, because I'm like, okay, I got to run to the grocery store. But when I run to the grocery store, when I get back, I've got a ton of things to do today. So you're very inspiring, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we will talk soon, Carole.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.